Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning. It's nice to see everybody talking on the chat. Hello, good morning. All right. Hope you're having a really great day and welcome to today's Naluri webinar. It's communicating with compassion. Now, again, I want to say I hope you're having a really great start to your day. Today's session is going to be super, super exciting. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us in our webinar today. I'm very, very excited to share with you, and I'm sure you'll be learning a lot in today's short session. So to give you a brief introduction to myself before we begin, I'm Natalie Kaniza from NK Communications. I'm a public speaking and also communications trainer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a radio and TV host, an MC, and also a VO talent. So my entire career is essentially based on communicating for entertainment, for my businesses, and also on behalf of the companies that I work for. Now, I've learned a lot in the last 17 years that I've been doing this, and it's also become my personal mission to make sure that my company builds powerful speakers, speakers who strive to make a difference in their communities, whether it's at work or even at home. So today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna learn more about how we can use communication to exchange your thoughts and ideas with someone, even in situations that are fraught with anger or even frustration. So if you're ready for today's webinar, please type yes in capital letters in the chat box. Let's go. Type yes if you're ready for today's webinar. Great, great. I like the yes with a bunch of S's at the end. Okay, good. I'm glad, and I'm also very, very excited too. Now, just to remind you, at any point in time, please feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and make sure you stay until the end, as there'll be a Q&A session where I'll try my best to answer all of your questions. We'll also give you the opportunity to download the slides for today, and we'll give you some short scenarios or exercises that you can practice with the lessons that you have learned in today's webinar. So please make sure that you stay until the very, very end. All right, so let's begin first by getting to know you a little bit better. In the chat box, I want you to tell me with a simple yes or no, have you ever been in a situation where you have lost your temper or lost control, or have just in general gotten completely annoyed with the other person that you were talking to? It doesn't matter if it's workplace related or even personal. Let me know with a simple yes or even a laughing emoji. Yes, 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 yes. I'm waiting for somebody to say no. Awesome. Then I'm guessing you are in the right webinar today. Oh, Shelva and Lynn, this emoji, not too sure. Okay, so again, yes, you're in the right webinar today. The tips in today's session can be used to deliver compassionate communication at the workplace or even at home in your personal relationships. However, do bear in mind that you'll need to practice and also be very versatile with how you can implement them in your daily lives. There are some gems in this webinar that I'm sure will be beneficial to you. The key is to use the lessons and practice as often as you can. So here's what we'll be covering in today's session. Let's bring up the slide for our itinerary today. Number one, we'll understand what compassionate communication really is. Number two, we'll look into the elements that make up compassionate communication. Number three, I'm going to share with you a framework by psychologist Marshall Rosenberg for nonviolent communication. We'll also look at how we can handle difficult conversations. Now, this has been a frequent request in our previous webinars, so finally, we're going to be answering this. And lastly, we'll look at how you can build compassionate work environments. So let's say we get straight into it by defining what compassionate communication actually is. Now, to set the scene, I want you to imagine for a second, imagine this scenario in your minds. You have a coworker, say for example, his name is Lucas. He's a very nice guy, but he loves to interrupt you when you're speaking. In every single team meeting or discussion, you'll nearly be done with making your point or saying what you have to say, and he will cut in. Either to agree or to disagree, it doesn't matter. And every single time this happens, you feel frustrated and you feel annoyed. And honestly, you've reached your tipping point. If he's going to do this one more time, you've already imagined the wrath that you're going to unload on him. But stop. This is one scenario, and there's many, many more where you need to use compassionate communication. So compassionate communication is a communication approach that emphasizes empathy, active listening, and also non-judgmental understanding. It's essentially a method of knowing how to express ourselves with the intention of fostering mutual understanding, of resolving conflicts, and building these meaningful connections, which are so necessary in today's world. So what we have to understand before we even begin is that when we communicate, every individual that we speak to has valid feelings, has valid needs, and has valid perspectives. And by using compassionate communication, we can actually honor and acknowledge these elements in our interactions with others. So in other words, if you can master compassionate communication, you're going to learn a skill that can elevate your communication to a whole new level. See, compassionate communication is indispensable in both your professional and also your personal relationships. Now, for several reasons. I'm going to share with you these reasons. Reason number one, conflict resolution. Compassionate communication actually provides a sort of structured and effective approach to resolve any of the conflicts or even arguments, which then in turn leads to peaceful and collaborative solutions. Number two, it can help to reduce misunderstandings. By fostering clear and also empathetic communication, it reduces the likelihood of misinterpretations in conversations, in brainstorming sessions, in discussions, or even conversations and meetings. Number three, building trust. When two people or people and groups of people communicate compassionately, they're going to create an environment of trust and also emotional safety. Now, this is key. If you want to build healthy and long-lasting relationships, trust is fundamental. It's the most important thing. The other person needs to trust you, and you need to trust the other person as well. Number four, conflict prevention. Compassionate communication, not only helps in resolving conflicts, but also in preventing them. It encourages proactive discussions. And in turn, you can address issues before they escalate into major problems. Number five, stress reduction. In personal relationships, it can actually help to alleviate stress and also tension. And when you're less stressed or you're less tense, you develop happier, more harmonious connections with other people. In professional relationships, it can improve your job satisfaction and also reduce workplace stress. And finally, the sixth point is increased productivity. If you can implement compassionate communication in your daily conversations, it can help to improve teamwork and cooperation, which leads to an increase in productivity and also job satisfaction. So essentially, compassionate communication is a very vital skill that can help you create and also maintain these relationships that are positive and fulfilling, both at the workplace and even at home. So tell me in the chat box, out of these 6 benefits, which one do you like the most? Or which one do you think will benefit you the most and why? Tell me in the chat box, which one? Is it conflict resolution? Is it reducing misunderstandings? Is it building trust? Stress reduction, building trust, good. Is it increased productivity? Yeah. So essentially, compassionate communication is going to help you kind of overcome all of these obstacles. Awesome. I just want to take the time to say thank you so much for really actively participating inside the chat box. This is really, really great. Thank you so much. Okay, so now that we understand the definition and also the benefits of compassionate communication, why don't we look at some of the key elements in compassionate communication? So compassionate communication is essentially made up of 3 important elements. You can see it on the screen. It's active listening, it's empathy, and it's non-judgmental language. This is the holy trinity for empathetic communication. It's the trifecta of compassionate communication. So let's look at our very first element, and let's try a little exercise for you to understand the first element better. This exercise is called the paper tear. Now, if you want to participate, here's what I need you to do. I need you to find a piece of A4 paper. Any paper will do. It doesn't need to be blank. It can be recycled. Just any piece of A4 paper, because you're going to need this for the exercise. I'm going to give you a minute or so to find this. And once you have it, type done in the chat box so I know. I want you to actively participate in this exercise because I think it'll be fun. I need to find a piece of paper. Hang on. Okay, I got mine. All right, done, done, done. Do we have a few more dones? I'll give everybody 30 seconds or so before we begin this exercise. See quite a lot of dones here. Everybody got a piece of paper? Mine's blank, but yours can be recycled. It doesn't matter. Okay, done, done, done. Give you a few more minutes to get this piece of A4 paper. All right, awesome. Can it be slightly dirty? Sure. It can be anything. I'm ready. Okay, let's begin with this exercise called the paper tear, okay? Now, the expectation of this short activity is very, very simple. Your sheet of paper should look exactly like my sheet of paper once we finish. I have complete confidence in every single person in this webinar today. I'm going to give you the instructions. All you have to do is follow the instructions. All right, so if everybody is ready, let's try this out. Are we ready? Type yes in the chat box if you're ready. Ready? Type yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, very good. Here, follow my instructions. What I want you to do is to fold your piece of paper in half. Okay, fold your piece of paper in half. Everybody folded their piece of paper in half like so? Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna tear off the top right of your piece of paper. Okay, tear off the top right of your piece of paper. Okay, now I want you to fold it in half again, one more time. Man, this is difficult with such a thick piece of paper. Fold it in half one more time, and I want you to tear off the top left now. Tear off the top left of your piece of paper. Tear off the top left. All right, everybody should have a paper that looks roughly like this. All right, last and final step. I want you to fold the piece of paper in half one more time, and this will be your final tear. We're gonna tear off top right. Okay, so you should have a tiny piece of paper that looks something like this. I feel a bit like a magician, but you should have a piece of paper that looks something like this. Now, please do not open your piece of paper just yet. Okay, if you're done, please type done. Type done if you are done. What's so funny, Karia? All right, good. Done, 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 done. Awesome. Okay, so to give you a quick recap, here was what we did. We had a piece of A4 paper, we folded it in half and we tore off the top right. We folded it in half one more time and we tore off the top left. And we folded it one last time and we tore off the top right. Yes, do you agree? If you agree with me, type yes in the chat box. If you agree, type yes in the chat box. Good. Okay, now everybody don't open your papers just yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you mine first, and then we're gonna see yours. Not too sure if I can see your cameras, but we're gonna try to do this, okay? So this is what my piece of paper looks like. Don't open your paper just yet. This is what my piece of paper looks like. Who here thinks their piece of paper looks exactly like mine? If you do, type yes in the chat box. If you don't, type no in the chat box. Who here thinks their piece of paper looks exactly like mine? Have you opened your piece of paper? No, not a chance. No, not a chance. Okay. All right, so everybody open your pieces of paper and see if it looks anything similar to this. Okay, I got whole in center. Okay, some people have roughly the same as what I have. Some people have, something completely different to what I have. Do we have a turn on camera function? Can we see everybody's pieces of paper? I don't think so. Minor difference, not at all. Okay, so our pieces of paper do not look alike. Not exactly 110%. You might have some elements that are the same as my piece of paper. Now, even though I had a very clear picture of my instructions and my expectations, it was simple. Fold in half, tear top right, fold in half, tear top left, fold in half, tear top right. I ended up with miscommunication. Our papers do not look alike. So here's a question that I want to pose for you, okay? What could we have done in that exercise to ensure that we got the expected outcome? Let me know in the chat box. What could we have done as people who are following instructions or somebody who is giving the instructions? What could we have done to ensure that we got the expected outcome? Clarify, ask for details, get the same type of paper, not too sure about that. Ask questions, go slowly, demonstrate. Ask questions, ask for feedback, specifics. Great. These are all great contributions as to how we could have done this exercise better. You could have asked questions. You could have asked for guidance. You could have asked for help. The chat box was open. You could have said, Natalie, where do I tear? Which side? What am I doing? How big of a tear? You could have verified your actions. So once again, you could have asked questions, asked for guidance or for help, or even verified your actions. This is known as active listening. So active listening is a fundamental component of compassionate communication. It involves you fully concentrating, understanding, responding, and remembering what's being said. The goal here is not to just hear the words, but to understand the speaker or the other person's perspective and also their feelings. So as you can see in the slide, it's a 7-step process, and it takes a lot of hard work. It's a chore to actively listen to somebody. But to give you the gist of it, the key elements of active listening include giving full attention. This is so important. In today's day and age, when we have phones and other distractions, giving full attention is focusing entirely on the other person without any distractions. For example, if you're speaking to somebody, put away your phone. Or choose an environment where the surrounding ambience will not intrude on your conversation. Second important little bit of active listening is paraphrasing or summarizing. In active listening, what you need to do is you need to repeat or summarize what the speaker has said to show your understanding. And number 3, the other important thing is to ask clarifying questions. You've said this inside the chat box, clarify. Clarify, clarify, clarify. If you do not fully understand what is being said, you need to seek clarification to make sure that you're not jumping to your own conclusions. And finally, another very important point of active listening is to use these non-verbal cues. When you are talking to somebody or discussing something, you need to display attentive body language. And this is as simple as just nodding and maintaining eye contact. This is just very good, attentive body language. Nod and maintain eye contact. So yeah, as you can see, it's a 7-step process. It's a laborious process, but if you can master active listening, you'll begin to develop stronger relationships with those around you, not just at the workplace, but even in your personal life. Now, the second element in compassionate communication is empathy. Empathy, as you probably already know, is the ability to understand and also share the feelings of another person. What you're doing is you're recognizing and acknowledging the emotions and also the experiences of other people, even if you haven't personally experienced the same circumstances. So empathy is crucial in compassionate communication as it helps for you to create a connection and a sense of understanding. Now, to practice empathy, what you need to do is, this is a very important one, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Imagine how they feel. Instead of thinking me, this is all about the other person. This is all about how you imagine how the other person might feel in a given situation. So you're essentially taking yourself out from your body and putting yourself in their shoes. The second thing you need to do is you need to validate the other person's emotions. From here, you need to acknowledge the other person's feelings, without any of your own judgment. This is pretty tough. It's acknowledging the other person's feelings, even if you don't think their feelings are correct. And finally, to practice empathy in communication, you need to express some form of understanding. You need to demonstrate that you truly understand the other person's emotions and experiences. So to give you an example of how we can put all this together, if a colleague of yours is feeling, say, for example, overwhelmed due to a heavy workload and they've just missed a deadline. So instead of saying something like, hey, I just don't understand why you can't complete your work on time. Why are you so slow? Whoa, that's an attack. Instead, an empathetic response could be, hey, you know what? It looks like you're under a lot of pressure. I understand how that can feel stressful. Is there anything that I can do to support you? To me, it's as simple as just rephrasing how you say things so that the other person does not feel attacked. So a simple way or a simple change in the way that you construct your sentences with the other person in mind can change the entire outcome of a conversation or even a confrontation. Which leads me to our final element in compassionate communication. And this is non-judgmental language. So when you use non-judgmental language, it involves communicating without blame or without criticism. It's very easy for us on a daily basis to say things, or the first thing that comes to our mind, it could be perceived as blaming or criticism. It's communication that is free from your own assumptions or any kind of prejudice. So how we can do this is, number one, avoid labeling or generalizing. Don't categorize or make assumptions about the person or the situation. You don't know what's going on in their minds or even in their lives. So avoid the labels. Number two, frame your statements positively. Phrase your statements in a way that focuses on the issue rather than blaming the individual. If possible, offer a solution or a chance to work it out. Look for the actual issue instead of the outcome of the situation. And finally, use I statements. This is so important. Try to express your thoughts and your feelings from your own perspective, rather than, assigning blame to the other person. For example, instead of saying to your kid or your son or whatever, instead of saying, hey, you're so disorganized, why do you keep missing your football practice? A very non-judgmental approach could be, hey, you know what? Sometimes, our schedules don't seem to align. How can we better coordinate, you going to football practice and me sending you to football practice so that everything runs smoothly? I don't want you to be late. It's a very non-judgmental approach to kind of addressing a situation with somebody else. So by integrating these three components into our everyday conversations, active listening, empathy, and non-judgmental language, we can then foster a communication environment that is, understanding, it's supportive, and it's conducive to healthy relationships. All right, so now that we know the three elements that make up compassionate communication, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a formula or a framework on how we can use these immediately at the workplace or even in your personal relationships. And this technique is called nonviolent communication, or NVC. It's developed by a Marshall Rosenberg. He is an American psychologist. He's an author and also a teacher. And he introduced this principle to the world in the 1960s. This principle has been around for more than 60 years. It's NVC. So NVC is based on the principle that people's behaviors are a reflection of their unmet needs and feelings. So how someone reacts to you is a direct reflection of the needs that are not met in their personal lives. Let me say that one more time. How someone reacts to you is a direct reflection of the needs that are not met in their personal lives. That is deep. So take some time to think about this today, and also take the time today to analyze how people converse with you on a daily basis. Now, if we can understand these needs and feelings, then we in turn can become more effective communicators. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how this is done Rosenberg's framework for NVC with the help of our friend Lucas. Remember, I introduced you to him earlier. He's the fictional colleague that loves to interrupt you. Okay, let's look at how this can be done with Lucas. So as you can see on the slide, the first step in NVC involves making an objective, non-judgmental observation of a situation. Did anyone catch that sentence? Rosenberg's frame, you want me that? Which sentence? How someone reacts to you is a direct reflection of the needs that are not met in their lives? Okay, there we go. We have the sentence. Okay, so the first step in NVC involves making an objective, non-judgmental observation of a situation. This means you're describing what you see or what you hear without evaluating it or interpreting it. Now, bear in mind that observation should be specific and based on facts. So with your colleague, Lucas, who keeps interrupting you, instead of saying, hey, Lucas, you always interrupt me during our meetings, you could actually turn the tables around and make an observation by saying, hey, Lucas, you know what? In our last 3 meetings, you spoke while I was still presenting. It's an observation. It's not an attack. Now, after you make this observation, let's go to the next slide. It's important for you to express your feelings about the situation. So what you want to do here is you want to use emotions to describe how the observation makes you feel. Now, bear in mind, this step actually requires some honest self-awareness of your own emotions. For example, following the previous observation, you would say, hey, you know what? When this happens, I feel frustrated and unheard. So, hey, Lucas, I've noticed that in our last 3 meetings, you spoke while I was still presenting. When this happens, I feel frustrated and I feel unheard. Next, in Rosenberg's framework for NVC, you identify the unmet need or value that is causing your feelings. Needs are universal human requirements, such as the need for respect, the need for understanding, or the need for collaboration. So if you can identify and express your needs, this will allow the other person to understand what's truly important to you. So let's look at need. You could express your need by saying, Lucas, I really need a space where I can share my ideas without interruption so that our team can make the best decisions. And now in the final step for Rosenberg's framework for NVC, you make a clear and actionable request to meet your need. This is a constructive way to ask for a specific action or a specific change that could help address the situation and fulfill your need. For example, you could say, you know what, could you please let me finish presenting my ideas before offering your input during our meetings? So that is it. Observation, feeling, need, request. If you glue all these 4 steps together, what you're going to get is you're going to get a clear, concise way of presenting your thoughts to the other person in a way that encourages empathy and cooperation instead of blame, defensiveness, and conflict. So let's look at it in full. Remember, Lucas is your colleague who loves to interrupt you. Here is how you're going to address this situation with Lucas. Hey, Lucas. You know, I've noticed that in our last 3 meetings, you spoke while I was still presenting. You know what, when this happens, I feel frustrated and I feel unheard. You know, I need a space where I can share my ideas without interruption so that our team can make the best decisions. So in future, if it's possible, could you please let me finish presenting my ideas before offering your input during our meetings? So there you have it. The 4 principles of NVC, nonviolent communication. It's observation, it's feeling, it's need, and it's request. Now, using Rosenberg's NVC framework, I want you to have a look at this imaginary scenario. We're going to look at this imaginary scenario, and we're going to look at how we can implement this in this scenario, just so you have a clearer idea of NVC. So if you look at the slide, on the left is Sarah. Sarah is a marketing manager who always manages to meet these tight deadlines. So lately, what she's been noticing is a dip in her team's performance. Then one day, she gets an email from Alex on the right, who is one of her designers, okay? And he's explaining why he has missed another project or another deadline. Sarah, of course, in this case, she's furious. She starts drafting an email to let Alex know how frustrated she is about his repeated delays. Dear Alex, how dare you? But after a few moments, what Sarah decides to do is she decides to calm down and rethink her approach and considers using compassionate communication instead. So let's look at how we can do this. Sarah can start first by making an observation. This is the NVC technique, one more time. Sarah can start first by making an observation. Hey, Alex, I notice you've been regularly missing deadlines. It's a direct observation. No blame, nothing. From here, she follows up with a personal feeling based on that particular observation. And this makes me feel a little frustrated as a leader. I want our team to succeed, but our performance at this present point isn't up to par. Now, she adds her own personal need, step 3, to the conversation and uses active listening to understand Alex's perspective and also Alex's feelings. So she says, hey, Alex, I need for you to tell me why you can't meet these deadlines. What's going on? Is everything okay? So by practicing empathy, Sarah then realizes that there is more to Alex's story. As I mentioned before, we never know what a person is feeling or going through in their own lives. So in this fictional scenario, perhaps this is a golden opportunity for Alex to share some personal issues that have been weighing him down. And at this point, while Alex is sharing his issues, Sarah practices active listening to really understand Alex's perspective and also Alex's feelings. Now, finally, to conclude Rosenberg's NVC framework in this fictional situation, Sarah shares a request to use using non-judgmental language and empathetic communication. Her request is, I understand that this must be difficult for you, and I really value your contributions, and perhaps, I can offer to temporarily share your tasks with the team, and if you need any more resources, please let me know. So the result is Alex feels heard, he feels valued, and he feels understood. And no colleagues were harmed in this process. Helpful to see the example of Alex's response as well. So say, for example, Alex has a family issue. Alex's family issue is that his mom is currently going through treatment for a sickness, and that's something that weighs a lot on your mind. So you can almost imagine it's a personal family issue that obviously is going to take a toll on you when you are at work. So this is what Sarah can do using NVC to understand Alex's situation better. Okay, all right. So this is NVC. Now, to make sure that you remember this framework and you can immediately implement it starting today or even tomorrow, type NVC equals OFNR. And if anybody can tell me what OFNR stands for, that'd be really great. Just so you remember, NVC by Marshall Rosenberg, type NVC equals OFNR in the chat box. Anybody? Or is my chat box not working? It's actually super simple. NVC equals OFNR. 10 points to the person who can tell me what OFNR stands for. Good job. Is it Sabiha? Yep, it's Sabiha. Oh, no, Alexandra. Good job, Alexandra and Sabiha. Awesome. So observation, feeling, need, request. It's a simple framework that you can use immediately tomorrow for nonviolent communication. Okay? Awesome. So now that we understand the principles of NVC or nonviolent communication, let's look at how we can handle those difficult conversations. So this topic has been a frequent request in our previous webinars with Naluri. If I'm not mistaken, we've done almost 4 webinars already, and this difficult conversation question has been a question that we've received all the time. And I can understand why. To be honest with you, it's not easy to be confronting somebody else. It takes a lot of courage to do this. And if you're the sort of person that doesn't like confrontations, this could be even harder. But obviously, it's a situation that cannot be avoided. We're humans, and we've all been or might just go through situations, at the office or even at home where we have to handle difficult or even emotionally charged conversations. Now, hopefully, the next time you come across this opportunity, you'll be able to do it with more compassion and with more empathy. So we already know the elements of compassionate communication and also Rosenberg's NVC framework. Need more continuous dialogue examples and prompts to practice. Do not worry, at the end of today's session, you'll be getting a bunch of different scenarios that you can do and use and implement the knowledge you have learned today. The reason why I'm not giving more dialogue examples is because I only have an hour. So otherwise I'll be taking up a lot of your time and we won't end on the right time. I hope you understand, Irene. Okay, awesome. So these are the 7 extra strategies that you can use along with the elements of compassionate communication and Rosenberg's NVC framework. You can use these 7 extra strategies to approach these conversations effectively. Number 1, what you can do when you are handling difficult conversations is to prepare mentally. Much like a presentation or like a discussion or even a meeting, preparation is key. As a public speaking and communication coach or trainer, preparation is key. You must prepare. If you have the chance, before a conversation, take some time to mentally get in the zone. Acknowledge your emotions and acknowledge any of the biases that you might have. What you can do is you can aim to approach the conversation with an open mind and this willingness to understand the other person's perspective. Because honestly, you need to be in the right frame of mind to approach a difficult conversation. So take the time to mentally prepare, get in the right mind or the right zone to have this difficult conversation. Number 2, choose the right setting. This is another thing that's super, super important. Choose a suitable environment for your conversation, preferably a private or a quiet space where both parties, you and the other person, feel comfortable. If you can, ensure that you have privacy and minimal distractions, as this can help you to maintain your focus and facilitate a more open dialogue. Imagine this for a second. If you try to break up with someone in the middle of a club at 2 a.m. in the morning, it just won't work. You need to choose the right setting, okay? Number 3, stay calm and stay respectful. This is super hard to do. We're human. But try your best to maintain a calm and respectful demeanor, even if that conversation becomes tense. So avoid raising your voice or using any sort of aggressive body language, lunging forward, standing up, trying to become bigger than the other person. So a great thing that you can do is, if you believe in mantras, there's a great one that you can repeat in your mind. It's by Jay Shetty. I'm pretty sure you've seen him on Instagram. He has this mantra that myself and my business partner, Nisha, we always say to ourselves. It's calm, balance, ease, stillness, and peace. So repeat this mantra in your mind. Calm, balance, ease, stillness, and peace. Repeat as often as you can inside your mind, along with proper breathing to keep your heart rate down. This is so important. Respectful behavior sets the tone for a more constructive conversation. So if you can feel your blood boiling, remember, calm, balance, ease, stillness, and peace. All right, number 4 is to focus on the solutions. Redirect the conversation towards finding these solutions. So instead of dwelling what's happened on the past, or you did this or you did that, try to steer the discussion towards actions or steps that can be taken to fix or even address the problem that you are speaking about. Focus on the solutions. Steer that conversation towards finding a solution. Number 5, this is something that people don't do much, but if you do, great. Take a break if necessary. If you see that the emotions are beginning to escalate in the conversation, or the conversation's becoming a little bit too heated, it's perfectly fine to take a break. In fact, it's better to take a break so that both parties can calm down and reflect on what's already been discussed. From there, you can both agree on a time to reconvene and start again. Number 6, seek common ground. If you can look for shared goals or even interests that both parties can agree on, this will be great. If you can find common ground, you create a basis of working together towards a solution. And finally, number 7, don't forget to end on a positive note. Try to end the conversation on a constructive note. And don't forget to be gracious when you end that conversation as well. Express your gratitude for, their willingness to engage in this difficult conversation with you. So here are my 7 extra steps on how you can handle difficult conversations, along with Marshall Rosenberg's MVC technique. So if you can do this, it'll help you foster understanding and minimize the potential for conflicts to, escalate. These simple strategies are going to help you facilitate a more productive and respectful dialogue with the other person. And now, lastly, let's look at how we as leaders or even co-workers can build compassionate working environments. So as a human that interacts with other humans, it's important for us to ensure that the environment that we socialize in is conducive. So tell me, I want you to be extremely honest with me. Do you think you work in a compassionate workplace? If you do, type yes in the chat box. If you don't, type no in the chat box, and please tell me why. Do you think you work in a compassionate workplace? Yes or no? Yes, no. No, yes, no. So it's a variety. Some people yes, but now it looks like a majority is no. Okay, people tend not to listen. Okay, good. People tend not to listen actually comes from you implementing it at the workplace. Don't worry, I'm going to share with you a few things in a second. Half and half. Okay, so building a compassionate work environment is extremely important, especially if our goal is to create a positive and also productive workplace. So here are my 8 tips for fostering compassion within your teams or even your organizations. Number 1, lead by example. A lot of people tend to complain about their subordinates or other people in their office environment when they actually are not the ones implementing the thing that they want to do. I hope you follow me when I say here. So lead by example. If you want something done, lead by example. Leaders should be the ones to model compassionate communication. If you're not a leader and if you're just part of the regular workforce, you can do this as well with your colleagues or even your teammates. When leadership or other co-workers demonstrates empathy and also you actively listen to everybody else in the organization, it's going to set the tone for respectful interactions within your company. So this is super important. Lead by example. You want something to be done the way that you want it done, you've got to lead by example. Number 2, provide training and provide workshops. If you can, offer training sessions or ask your boss to sign you up for training sessions on compassionate communication or communication in general. Provide these workshops that focus on active listening, conflict resolution, and empathy building. If not, you can also organize team building activities that encourage bonding and also natural understanding. All of these activities in training courses and also team building helps to foster a supportive and also a very cohesive team culture. I'm just going to slide this in here. If you want any information on training, please do let us know on the chat box. Just thought I'd slide it in there. Okay, number 3 is to encourage open dialogue. Again, lead by example, encourage open dialogue. Create an environment where open dialogue is encouraged. Employees should feel safe to express their concerns, safe to ask questions, safe to share ideas without fear of backlash. I noticed for a lot of us here in Malaysia, when we were growing up in school, if we ever asked a question, we were told, hey, sit down, don't ask the question, just listen. But actually, in our working environments, encouraging open dialogue is actually really, really important. Make sure it's safe for you to express a concern, ask a question, share an idea, make sure that it's okay, it's normal, all right? Number 4, recognition and appreciation. So recognize and appreciate the efforts of employees. Sometimes somebody just needs a pat on their back or a, hey, you did good. Acknowledging somebody's hard work and expressing gratitude actually fosters a positive environment and encourages a culture of support and appreciation. If you say thank you to somebody for doing a good job, that person will feel like their day has been made. So remember, recognition and appreciation. Number 5 is to establish clear communication channels. Ensure that the communication channels are clear and they are open. This is as simple as having regular team meetings on Fridays, regular feedback sessions, or even if really you want to do this, have an anonymous suggestion box where people can put in suggestions or voice their opinions without even revealing their names, so that this allows all voices to be heard. Try your best to make sure that communication is always open and those channels are super, super clear. Recognition is very expensive here. Recognition does not actually need for you to be buying them an award, giving them a car, or anything like that. Recognition is something as simple as, say, for example, I did well in a project and I'm being addressed in the Friday team meeting. My boss could just say, hey, Natalie, you did really, really good for that project. Congratulations. Everybody give Natalie a round of applause. It's as simple as that. And I promise you, you're going to feel so much better. It doesn't need to be monetary. It doesn't need to be something that has value. It's something that's as simple as communicating and saying, good job. People feel really, really good. Sometimes praise will do. You're right. All right. Number 6 is to promote work-life balance. Gen Z speaks about this all the time, work-life balance. It's actually super, super important. And I think Gen Z are onto something. Encourage a healthy work-life balance. If you're a compassionate organization, you're going to recognize the importance of personal well-being. And you're going to be able to support your employees and give them this balance. So it's something as simple as, perhaps if it's not very, very urgent, you don't have to text them at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday evening. It could be saved till tomorrow. It's as simple as that. Work-life balance. Number 7, conflict resolution mechanisms. What you need to do is you need to establish clear conflict resolution procedures. So if there is about to be a conflict or there already has been a conflict, ensure that all of your employees or anybody that works in your organization has the resources and also the mechanisms to address these conflicts respectfully and constructively. How that happens in your workplace, you'll have to figure out. And finally, the most important one, regular check-ins. What you can do as a leader or as a team member is to conduct regular check-ins with other employees to understand if they have any challenges, if they have any aspirations, how their well-being is. This actually demonstrates care and empathy for their concerns. So those are 8 ways that you can build compassionate work environments. Some might be difficult, some are super, super easy. So by fostering a culture of compassion within your organization, you as an employer can significantly impact the well-being, the team dynamics, and the overall productivity in your company. Compassionate communication serves as a foundation for a positive work environment, nurturing a culture where employees are going to feel valued, they're going to feel heard, and they're going to feel respected. So there you have it, the essentials of compassionate communication, which I hope you will use to benefit your communication in the future. So just before we wrap up this session, it's 11:51 now, and we go into Q&A. Let me quickly recap what we have learned today. Let's have a look at the next slide. All right, so we have covered today 5 different topics. It's a very fast-paced webinar today, but we now understand what compassionate communication is. We know the elements of compassionate communication. We can begin to implement Marshall Rosenberg's framework or theory for nonviolent communication. We could now become better at handling those difficult conversations. And lastly, we now know how to build compassionate work environments. So tell me in the chat box, which of the topics in today's session resonated with you the most? Which one will you remember the most? Which one will you implement later today or even tomorrow? Let me know, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Rosenberg, of course. 4, handling difficult conversations. All right, 3 and 5. All right, good. OFNR, awesome. This is great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I noticed some people were saying in the chat box earlier that they wanted some slides. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you the slides for today's presentation. You can see Marshall Rosenberg's NVC technique there. You can see the elements of compassionate communication. You can also see my 7 tips for handling difficult conversations, and also the 8 tips for building compassionate workplaces. So if you want the slides and also additional scenarios that you can have a look at and try to practice what you have learned today, please scan this QR code. I'll give you a few minutes to do this. You're most welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's session. We have a little bit more. We'd like the replay too. Unfortunately, there is no replay for today's session, but I think you can kind of piece it together with the slides. If you have any problems, you can always email us. I'll put my email address there. Yeah, so if you want anything extra, if you'd like to have a chat, you can contact us at contact@nataliekaniza.com. Give you a few more minutes to do this. When are you back on radio? My shift today is at 4 p.m. So you can hear me on Fly FM a little bit later. Done the survey, great. All right, just a few more minutes for anybody who has not done it yet. Terima kasih. I'm glad you enjoyed. Okay, so if you would like to learn more, we are trying our very best to be very active on our socials. It's Natalie Kaniza. We're on TikTok, we're on LinkedIn, and we're also on Instagram. So please do us a huge favor and support a small public speaking and communication training company by following us, natalie.kaniza on IG, and also Natalie Kaniza on LinkedIn. Now, done following you just now. Thank you. If you'd like to check out our courses, both for individuals and also for companies, our website is www.nataliekaniza.com. Just to let you know, all of our courses are HRDC claimable. So if you'd like to know more, please check out www.nataliekaniza.com. We offer a variety of training courses, from the foundations of communication to high impact presentations to even what we learned today, communication essentials for leaders at the workplace. So previously, we've trained some really great companies. We've trained companies like Burberry, RBC, and Shell. And if you check out our Google reviews, you will see that we have received almost all 5-star ratings. So please do give our website a check out. It's www.nataliekaniza.com. Are there any public program for individual? Yes, we have personal coaching. So we have personal coaching, we have corporate training for groups of 15 to 20. And hopefully by next year, we'll be opening some public workshops similar to this that you can join. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for allowing me to share today. And I hope the information that I presented was beneficial to you. So to close the session, what we're going to do is we're going to head into our Q&A. I do believe you probably want to stay around for some of these because we've received some questions previously that we would like to address in the webinar today before we wrap up at 12 p.m. So I'm going to answer this question first that we have received. It's a very important question, and I think it's something that many of us actually go through on a daily basis. What should I do when a colleague criticizes my work in front of others? Oh dear. This is probably one of the most, I don't know, I hate being in this situation. So this is probably a situation that I'm not the fondest of. So as I mentioned before in this webinar, a great way to begin addressing this issue is to obviously use I statements when you express your feelings and your needs. For example, if you were beginning to address this situation with that person, you can say, hey, really sorry to tell you this, but I felt embarrassed when you spoke about my work earlier. Is it okay if we discuss this privately so that we can understand each other better? Remember Rosenberg's NVC technique. When you are speaking to this person, observation, feeling, need, and request. There's no way that you're going to just pull a long face and not talk to this person. This is a situation that needs to be addressed. You need to talk to this person. You need to get it off your chest because this colleague is just going to criticize your work even more often in the future. So have this confrontation, but make sure you do it with compassionate communication. All right. Next question is, how can I address my partner's constant lateness without starting an argument. Okay, so I am no relationship expert, but this is something that I believe everybody has to deal with. Out of the 3 relationships in your life, or the 5 relationships in your life, there's one person who's always going to be the person who is tardy. Okay, as a German, I believe in always being on time, and as a person who was kind of my entire career has been on radio, everything is according to time. So in my own opinion, I'm always on time, but first, the thing that you need to do is to make sure that you're not being late as well. If you're going to pinpoint somebody for being late, you can't do it too. It helps if you're on time before you start a confrontation about this. Then you could start by expressing your feelings and also your needs calmly. Like, for example, I feel anxious when you're late because, you know what, I like to be punctual. So how do we both work together to meet both of our needs? Maybe we can have a chat about this. What do you think? So this is how you can address your partner's constant lateness without starting an argument. Invite them for a polite conversation, a compassionate communication conversation. Okay, next question that I'm going to look at from our previously given questions is, I often feel overwhelmed with my workload, but I don't want to disappoint my boss. How can I express my concerns without jeopardizing my job? Honestly, in my own opinion, I would feel honored as a boss if my co-workers would discuss their needs with me. So don't be afraid, just work up the courage to share your feelings and needs. Just do this honestly and perhaps with a suggestion or even suggestions for how you plan to improve the situation. For example, you could say, you know what, I want to excel at my job, but I think I might need some help managing my workload. Perhaps we could explore these strategies that I've come up with together. Simple as that. Okay, let's have a look at some of the questions that you have asked. Let's answer maybe just 1 or 2 more. I'm trying to figure out. Would like to know deeper how conflict resolution procedure mechanics look and sound like. Irene C, if you text this inside the chat, we can give you some information about that. I do believe that this question perhaps would take a longer time to answer. So Irene, please just leave us your email address. Okay, Marina, let's answer your question before we wrap up this Q&A. How best can we handle rude people or rude subordinates? I suppose the thing that I would suggest that you would do right now is to find the individual and to really understand what's going on inside their lives. Perhaps there is a reason as to why they are being rude. Is there a reason? You can have a little chat, maybe just say, hey, come on, let me take you out for roti canai or nasi lemak. Maybe we can have a talk about this. But don't say, hey, why are you so rude? You can just say, how's everything in your life? Get them to open up about their lives. Get to further understand what's going on inside their minds. Perhaps from there, you can find the roots of the problem as to why they are so rude. Okay, thank you, Irene, for your email. Darshini, one last question, okay? How can we help someone who is constantly negative about their work and dislikes their job? Honestly, to me, if I think you are negative about your work and you dislike your job, you need to find another job. But sometimes as a employer or as a boss or as a management level, you need to be able to kind of address this issue with people like this. Perhaps, as I said before, you can find out what the root of their problem is. Sometimes people, we assume the worst of people, but actually what's going on inside their lives is a completely different story. Sometimes they are affected and they don't know how to, deliver what they want to do while being affected by a certain problem. So if you look through the slides, yes, mental health challenges, all these sorts of things. So I think the key thing that you need to do is you need to figure out what's going on in that person's life. Okay? All right, awesome. So again, I'd like to say thank you for attending today's webinar. I do believe we have another one coming up in December. So if you want to, you can follow Naluri. Don't really know what topic we'll be talking about, but if you follow Naluri, you will figure out what we're going to be speaking in December. For now, thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar, Communicating with Compassion. I hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. I hope that you will take the lessons and implement them in your daily lives. And I hope that you will keep in touch with us if you have any questions about how you can use the lessons that you have learned. For now, though, have a great Thursday. I will see you next month in December. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you, thank you, thank you.